at a broader picture here and tying it to some specifics, we're probably all familiar with the SolarWinds intrusion and breach that happened earlier, which was a supply chain attack. Tyler, can you kind of relate that supply chain attack to how compliance requirements are starting to increase across different industries and how those are related to each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And so CMMC is it starting to become more formalized? But I mean, even prior to CMMC, which is been in the last couple of years, virtually any RFP that you're going for, whether it was a government entity or not, right? They had some part of their, if it was a mature organization that you were looking to do a bid for, was going to have in there some vendor management questions, some questions that related to what are you doing for security redoing in these areas? Again, very basic. And like I said, oftentimes tied to NIST, but the SolarWinds breach, right? It opened a lot of eyes. We had some customers. I mean, SolarWinds is a super popular product. We had customers that we ended up having to do incident response investigations and going in and make sure that they weren't breached. We had some customers that do have ties to the DoD, and the guidance from CISA, which is basically like the DoD's, it's like the Information Security Agency for America. CISA's guidance was basically shut it all down, right? And so you look at like the operational implications of that. I can no longer monitor my network. I can no longer monitor my systems. I can no longer patch stuff, right? So there's huge implications to that. But it was so severe, and the breadth of the area, and the people who were being targeted were those people who did have ties into the DoD. It was actually really interesting to see. We had, like I said, multiple customers that were running that software, and we found that only the ones that were dealing with DoD were actually basically there was a way to find out if there was actually actively being exploited. There was some files and things you could look for to see if it was actively being exploited. And the customers that were in the manufacturing space or things like that, they ended up not, we found no evidence of actual breach or interaction with the nation state attacker that carried on the attack. But in those ones that were tied to the government agencies, we found that stuff, right? And we basically had to shut it all down. And there was, obviously a huge operational implications to that. But then we had to work with the government, with the reps of those government agencies to walk through, okay, when can we start to rebuild these lines? They basically just cut off the lines of communication, right? And so you're in the dark at that point. But and it took us a while to get back up to where we could, reopen those lines of communication with the vendor, with the government agencies. It was bad.